Dr. Richard Sutton, Professor of Computing Science at the University of Alberta, founder of the Openmind Research Institute, and the recipient of 2024 ACM A Turing Award. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to the NUS120 Distinguished Speaker Series, Shaping the Future of AI and Reinforcement Learning. I am Min Hui, a third-year undergraduate student from the Faculty of Science, and I'll be your Master of Ceremonies for this afternoon. The NUS120 Distinguished Speaker Series brings compelling speakers to share their unique perspectives on pressing issues of the future that affect our country, our region, and the world. The series explores the overarching theme of shaping the future and encourages thought-provoking ideas and conversations that inspire debate and discussion. This afternoon, Prof. Sutton will share his insights on the future of AI and reinforcement learning. Moderating the Q&A session with Prof. Sutton will be Associate Professor Brian Low, NUS Associate Vice President of Artificial Intelligence, Director of AI Research at AI Singapore, and Deputy Director of NUS Artificial Intelligence Institute. It is now my pleasure to invite NUS President Professor Tan Eng Chai to begin by saying a few words. Prof. Tan, please.
Thank you, Ming Hui. Good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to our third NUS120 Distinguished Speaker Series. Now, today's lecture explores one of the most transformative fields in modern science. Artificial intelligence is reshaping what is possible, unleashing new possibilities and capabilities that are transforming industries, lives, as well as our societies. Reinforcement learning has played a key role in driving the AI revolution. How much farther can computations and machine learning go? And to what end? Will humans lose control? Tackling this question involves both technical knowledge, precision, and also ethical responsibilities. It is my honor today to welcome a pioneer whose work has profoundly shaped our understanding of AI. Professor Richard Sutton is widely recognized as a founding father of modern reinforcement learning. Beginning in the 1980s, he worked with Professor Andrew Barto to develop the conceptual, mathematical, and algorithmic foundations of reinforcement learning, formulating reinforcement learning as a general problem framework. Now, this has evolved to become one of the most important approaches for creating intelligent systems. It has been applied to a vast range of problems, powering the development of intelligent systems everywhere, from robotics, personalized healthcare, to autonomous vehicles, and more. Reinforcement learning is compelling because of its technical elegance, and none other than Richard will be able to say that, and also the wide applicability. At its core, it embodies the essence of human intelligence, learning from rewards, exploring environments, and also adapting continuously to make better decisions. Prominent examples of reinforcement learning include AlphaGo's victory over top-ranked Go player Lee Sedol, as well as all of us know, ChatGPT. Now, this year, reinforcement learning has experienced a resurgence as it helps improve AI's reasoning or thinking abilities, making these systems much better at tackling even more complex problems. Professor Sutton's work in AI has had far-reaching impact. His work also exemplifies how a multidisciplinary approach can inspire new advances as well as break knowledge frontiers. And much of his work, if I may say, is inspired by psychology and neuroscience. Notwithstanding his prolific scientific contributions, Prof. Sutton's vision extends beyond smarter machines. He advocates for the responsible and impactful application of AI. That is, developing systems that are not only highly intelligent, but also align with humanity's progress and society's good. And NUS shares this vision. We believe deeply in advancing technologies with real-world impact, guided by a strong sense of social responsibility. AI is deeply embedded in our multidisciplinary efforts. At NUS Computing, for instance, our researchers are collaborating with faculty from engineering, from medicine, and other faculties to develop intelligent as well as multi-agent systems. And reinforcement learning is being applied to address challenges in areas such as health diagnostics, autonomous robotics, and more. Now, last year, we launched the NUS AI Institute with research interests in translating foundational AI and machine learning research into scalable applications for the greater public good. Safety and ethics are core tenets of this institute. We want to address risks and create systems that not only helped us solve humanity's most complex issues, but are also fair, sustainable, and robust. So it is in this spirit that I warmly welcome Professor Richard Sutton and look forward to his invaluable insights and also a lively discussion with the audience. Thank you, and may I invite Professor Sutton.
Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. It's a great honor to speak at NUS at the occasion in this series, the 120th anniversary of the university. It's just great to be able to share my thoughts with you about AI, where we're going, how we will get there, what it means. I'd like to start with a couple of quotations. This one is about the stakes, the importance of AI. Intelligence, this is Ray Kurzweil, intelligence is the most powerful phenomenon in the universe. In the universe. It's a strong statement. We want a notion of intelligence that can live up to this statement. Something that should be genuinely important, really beyond even mankind. And I also have a second quotation. It's from Alan Turing. What we want is a machine that can learn from experience. Learn from experience, which is something we still struggle to do. This is from 1947. the first public presentation on AI ever. There was no AI in 1947. This statement was not made at an AI conference, because there was no AI. It was made at a talk at the London Mathematical Society. So in the very beginning, before there was AI, there was an interest in learning from experience, and then it was lost for a while. It came back in the form of reinforcement learning, and then it's gradually evolved over time to where we are today. So where are we today? I like to say that today we are in the era of human data, because all of our AIs, or most of our AIs, are trained on human-generated text and images from the internet. Then it's fine-tuned by humans, providing examples and preferences. It's trained on humans to predict the human's next words or to predict human labels. It's not trained to predict or control. These are the large language models, the most prominent elements of AI today. But, I don't know, I think we're gradually reaching the end of this paradigm. We're starting to reach the limits of the data that's been provided by humans. Most high-quality data sources, like the internet, have already been consumed. And then what do we do next? Generating genuinely new knowledge is beyond this human-centered approach. We need a new source of data. So I would say, David Silver and I say that we're entering the era of experience. This is a new source of data. We need a new source of data, one that grows and improves with the agent's improvements and growth. Not a static data set, but one that responds to the abilities of the agent. And we think that such data can be generated from an agent's first-person interaction with the world. And that's what I'm calling experience. Experience is not meant to be something like qualia or some mysterious thing. It just means the data you get when you interact with the world. So let's just note that this is the way people learn. This is the way animals learn. And I want to show you some examples of that, because I think it's obvious, and that you will see it as obvious when you think about it. So this is a small infant interacting with its world, encountering various toys. It's not a hyperactive child, it's just sped up a little bit. But you see what he does? He interacts with each toy for a period of time, and then when he's no longer learning anymore from it, he moves on to the next one. And you know, his interaction with the toys today will be different from his interactions with the toys next month, because his mind will have changed, and he will have learned how to interact longer with a particular kind of toy and do new things with it. And this is not just true of infants. Through all animals and throughout our lives, we learn different things, and we're very sensitive to our experiences, to what works and what doesn't work. So if you look at these soccer players moving, and you can imagine the sensory input they're getting. They're getting things from their eyes, they're getting things from their bodies. There's very little time. This fire hose of data has to be processed to figure out what to do and to learn from what has worked and not worked. The animals, that hyena running from the lion is continually learning what to do. The baseball player trying to connect with the ball. The hawk trying to fly through a narrow space. Or persons trying to talk to each other. All these have real-time, high-bandwidth signal processing. And I'm thinking this is what intelligence is. Intelligence, humans spend a lot of time talking to each other, and even talking is a much richer source of data than what you would get in text. So you see now what I mean when I say we need this new source of data that grows and improves as the agent becomes stronger, like the infant, and that this is the way people and animals learn. It's also the way AlphaGo learned to make its creative move number 37, that won the key game of the match. AlphaGo was learning from its experience in imagination by imagining possible moves and possible counter moves. So it was really learning from simulated experience. But I think it's still appropriate to say it's experience. And there's something similar going on with AlphaProof, which is a new system for mathematics, which won a medal in the International Mathematical Olympiad. So I want to say just a little bit more about this experiential mindset, or the era of experience. Just finish consolidating it in your mind. An agent exchanges signals, the sensations and actions with the world. These are experience. Learning is from experience. I think we're fairly used to saying that. But also knowledge is about experience. Knowledge, the content of the knowledge, even if it's built in, the content of the knowledge is a belief about what the data, how the data will respond to your actions, or what you will see in the future. Knowledge is about experience. That's why you say an agent is intelligent to the extent that it can predict and control its input signals, particularly its reward. And so we focus on these things. We focus on predicting, we focus on controlling. Experience is the focus and foundation of all intelligence. And so the field of reinforcement learning has always been based on this way of thinking. So if we look at the history, the recent history of AI, and the attention being paid to the reinforcement learning approaches, we see back in 2014, Atari and AlphaGo and AlphaZero were times of increasing interest in reinforcement learning. And then, so I call this, David Silver and I call this the era of simulation, because all those things were learned from simulated experience. And then of late, we've been really intrigued by human data. And GPT-3 and ChatGPT were using human data to become more skilled and more knowledgeable. And then now we're starting to see those same systems being allowed to take actions and imagine possible consequences. And this is where we're entering the era of experience. Okay, so my perspective then on the future of AI. Well, first of all, the creation of superintelligent agents and superintelligence augmented humans, I think will just be all good, an unalloyed good for the world. We are many concerns about it, but my prediction is that it will turn out to just be all good. Now, it will probably take decades, and it will continue for decades after we've reached human level intelligence. It's a kind of a marathon thing. You should not think of it as a sprint, as a race, as a sprint, but maybe a race as a marathon. To get there, fully intelligent agents, we will require learning from experience, which is beyond large language models, as magnificent as they are as customizable interfaces to all the world's knowledge. Nevertheless, they are limited by the existent world knowledge. We have entered this new era of experience where we can use methods like reinforcement learning, but to fully realize reinforcement learning's power will require better algorithms. So we really are in this age where we still need to get better and better algorithms. We can't just live with backpropagation. We need algorithms that are capable of continual learning and capable of meta learning, capable of planning with learned models. Okay, so I want to move on now, talk a little about politics. Nothing too scary or too serious. Actually, it's all serious, but we have to take it all in a lighthearted way in order to think clearly. And we don't want to be afraid of what's coming. If you're afraid, you can't think clearly and you can't make good decisions. So let's try to think clearly. So I want you to think about societies of agents, and if there would be one goal or many goals. Now, I start as a reinforcement learning researcher. I think, well, okay, if I have many agents, many reinforcement learning agents, well, each agent will have its own goal, of course, because its goal is to maximize its reward, and it will have its own signal into its mind that it's maximizing. Now, also in nature, each animal has its own pains, its own pleasures, its own food, its own family. And I think in nature, each animal has its own goals. So I think, just the normal way, if you don't think too hard, it's obvious that in AI and in nature, different agents will have different goals. They do have different goals. And I think that's fine. I think, in fact, that's the way our economies work. Every person has a different objectives. They're similar, like we each maybe want to take care of our families, but my family is not your family. My food is not your food. And so they're kind of symmetric, but they're different. They're not the same. So I think our economies don't rely on people having a shared goal as long as they're willing to be civilized and work together. So agents can coexist in peace, be productive, be prosperous, even when they all want different things. So Singapore doesn't want exactly the same thing as every other country, but we can all coexist in peace with trade and specialization. So I wanted to find a couple words. Decentralization is the word I will use to refer to many agents, each pursuing its own goal. And we can live in peace, each agent pursuing its own goal. And then the way we are so prosperous in this decentralized setting is that we cooperate. So cooperation is different agents with different goals interacting to their mutual benefit. One agent achieves its goal, the other agent furthers its goals through the interaction. Mutual benefit, win-win. So we can contrast this with, say, bees or ants. They would cooperate. I don't even want to say they cooperate. They collaborate. They coordinate because they all have the same goal. Okay, but cooperation, true cooperation, as I'm going to define it, is agents with different goals interacting to their mutual benefit. So it's like an exchange in an economy and specialization. So this is why I think we've been so successful. This is our superpower. We cooperate more than any other animal, and cooperation is facilitated by our unique human abilities for language and our invention of money. And our greatest successes are cooperations. Our economies and markets and governments, these are all cooperations. And our greatest failures are failures to cooperate, like when we have wars, when we have theft, when we have fraud, corruption. Decentralized cooperation is an alternative to this common purpose, as I've tried to express. And in my view, I think it's really more elegant, more sustainable. We can all have different goals. No one has to force someone else to have a goal. We don't have to worry about alignment of people. They have their different goals and they work together, and it's just fine and beautiful and robust. And if someone comes in with a different goal, they just incorporate and cooperate, and we work together. So I think humans are better at cooperation than any other animal, but at the same time, we're kind of terrible at it because we still do have wars. We still do have corruption and theft and fraud. So we struggle to cooperate. It's our superpower, but we also struggle to do it. And this is our central tension in our politics. So cooperation is not always possible. It takes multiple trustworthy agents. And there are always going to be some agents that benefit from not cooperating. The thieves, the con men, the weapons manufacturers, the dictators. So we need institutions to facilitate cooperation and to punish the cheaters. So centralized, we turn to our centralized authorities and our institutions to facilitate cooperation. At the same time, we have to worry that these centralized authorities will take too much power and abuse it and become authoritarian or just sort of sclerotic friction in our lives. So the contrast is between centralized control on the one hand and decentralized cooperation. And I think the tension between the two is a central political issue of our time. So let's just observe our current environment. We see many calls for centralized control of AI. We want to align the agents, the AI's goals with so-called human goals. There are calls to pause AI research. There are calls to ensure safety of AI. Sure, I'm all for safety, but so many people who are calling for safety are really calling for control. They're saying, oh, this is dangerous, you've got to give the power to us, we will keep you safe. So many calls for safety are really calls for control, centralized control. Who is allowed? Okay, also we know about limiting the computer power available and requiring disclosures of AI. All these calls for centralized control of AI that I think many of you at least are familiar with. And we should just see the parallels for the calls of centralized control of people. Controlling their speech, controlling what they can hear, for controlling the trade between organizations and between countries, tariffs, economic sanctions, where you can work, how is the control over capital. So the arguments for centralized control of AIs and centralized control of people, they're eerily similar. They're all based on fear. It's like we should fear the AIs because they'll be different. We should fear the other country because they may be different. Maybe Singapore isn't so afraid of other countries. But I spent a lot of time in the West, and the West is very afraid of not only China, okay, but also Russia. And they are truly demonized in our media. And once I traveled to China and I spoke with some top people there, and I said, you know, Americans are really afraid of you, afraid of China. And they said, oh, well, the Chinese are really afraid of the Americans. We're afraid that the Americans are going to drop a bomb on us, okay? So I think there's fear everywhere, and we have to resist that fear. We demonize each other based on fear, and this is a way to gain centralized control. Okay, so maybe I can summarize. Human flourishing, maybe AI flourishing, comes from decentralized cooperation. Humans are great at cooperation, but also terrible at it. Cooperation is not always possible, but it's the source of all that is good in our world. Our technology, our civilization, our prosperity, it really all comes from us specializing and exchanging, working together in this way. Millions of people, billions of people working together. Many of the people that work together, they don't even speak the same language. But through our markets and our institutions, we manage to cooperate and produce this wonderful world that we have. If we look with open eyes, I think it's easy to see who's calling for mistrust, who's calling for non-cooperation, and who's calling for centralized control, and that we should resist those calls. The problem is not telling who's calling for centralized control. It's easy to see. We just have to, I think we should resist those. We just have to choose to resist the calls for centralized control. I think it gives a useful lens with which to view all calls for human and AI interaction. So one response is the reason I'm here, to create, in response to this politics, we've created the Openmind Research Institute, which is a charitable institute for fundamental first principles AI research, which will be openly shared. So our mission is to understand intelligence and share it with the world. Randy, Gable, Joseph Odile, and I created it 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, actually. And the key thing is that next bullet, that all research product is made available equally to all countries. No country can dominate and control this research output. It's also a network of fellows. What it is, the substance of it is, it's a network of research fellows around the world. We have one research lab in Edmonton, and we're trying to create a second one here in Singapore. Our worldwide headquarters probably will be in Singapore. Yeah. Okay, so I could be done here, but I decided to try to include one more thing, a bit of philosophy. maybe you thought I was already doing philosophy. But let's go a little bit grander, okay? Grander, let's just talk perspective on AI. AI is not alien technology. I think it's really one of the oldest of human strivings. It's what we've always tried to do. Thousands of years, philosophers and ordinary people have sought to understand their minds. Okay? People have always been fascinated by how they work. How do minds work? How can we make our minds work better? It's very natural. It's a grand quest. It's exemplified by the quote I gave you earlier about intelligence being the most powerful phenomenon in the universe. We obviously want to understand this phenomenon that humans are maybe the leading instance of in the universe. A holy grail of science and the humanities. It's a great, glorious prize. I think we should think about it. Anyway, I always thought about it this way. I encourage you to. Now, in the ascent of humanity, I think succession to AI is inevitable. Maybe these will be two machines, or maybe it will be humans augmented by machines. As we understand ourselves, it's inevitable that we will become stronger and stronger. And we will continue changing as we have throughout history and prehistory. I think this much is obvious, but this is still very human-centric. We're saying what's happening to us? You know, it's us. Why be so human-centric? What about the universe? What is the universe thinking as all this happens? What would be the universe's perspective? So this is quite grand, but let's continue. If we can discern 4 great ages of the universe, and ultimately what we're talking about now is the transition from the 3rd to the 4th. Maybe the first great age is just after the Big Bang, when the universe consisted of nothing more than elementary particles. And then those coalesced into stars. They blew up and made the heavy elements, and then recoalesced into new stars and planets. And then shortly after that was the formation of life. And so the 3rd age might be the age of life. If you're just watching the world and you say, watching the universe, what's going on, you would say this 3rd age, there are all these new living things that have complexity and the ability to replicate. And those became, they formed nervous systems, became smarter, formed language. And then they gradually, a blink of an eye, a few tens of thousands of years in the universe's scale, they developed technology and machines. So then I think it's appropriate to think of this as the beginnings of the 4th great age. But I'm going to quibble with the terminology, which I tend to do. I quibble about terminology because I think words are, on the one hand, words are unimportant. Only ideas are important. But if you choose the wrong words, it pollutes your ideas. And so it's worthwhile thinking about what words you use to think if how they shape your ideas. So I don't want to call this the age of life. Instead, I want to call it the age of replicators. Because what is life? What's special about life? These are organisms. These are systems that can replicate themselves. They can make new copies of themselves without understanding themselves. So like we can make more people. We don't really understand how people work, but we know how to create more people. And this is true for all of life. As we enter the next phase, I want to call it the age of machines. I'm going to call it the age of design, because now we can actually design new things. We don't have to replicate them. We can design them. So let's think some more about these two. As I said, it's tempting to talk about the age of life and the age of machines, but these terms are already archaic and misleading because our machines are getting more lifelike all the time. And our understanding of life and organisms and biology is it's biological machines. So we can't really talk about life and machines. That's not going to work. What's the real difference? The real difference is that the biological things, they're created without a mind understanding how they work. They're replicated, almost like a Xerox machine. You know, you have something, you don't understand its details, but you can make a new copy of it. You don't understand how our bodies work, we can make new bodies. Whereas technological things are created first in the imagination of some mind. You know, you imagine, oh, I could make this podium, I can make a chair, I can make a university, I can make, I don't know, a spaceship. They're first created in your mind and then in the world. So these are designed. And design things, the special thing about them is that you can change them and improve them more easily. So I like the words replication and design, and I'm going to use them a little while. So you could say that many non-human replicators are designers. So a non-human replicator, well, first of all, what I'm saying is that humans are replicators. We can replicate ourselves. And there are non-human replicators that can also design. So many animals will make a nest or a burrow or a house. And many animals will make tools. Chimpanzees famously strip branches, side branches from sticks to fish for termites. And New Caledonian crows do something similar with a strip of leaf to fish for grubs. Tools. Humans famously made stone axes, made plows to do agriculture. Now we have computers and spaceships and factories and software, tools for making other tools. In human parlance, when we say tool, we actually don't mean something like a nest or even like a twig to fish for termites. We mean, when we talk about tools, we really mean a meta tool. We have a tool that helps us build the house, like a hammer helps us build the house. It's a meta tool. Anyway, many non-human replicators are designers. They design things, and humans, of course, are designers. So it's interesting. We are replicators, but we are doing the designing. And this is how we transition from one age to the next one. So let's ask these ultimate questions then. What are humans? What's our role in the universe? Can we answer this dispassionately, you know, setting aside, you know, we're talking about ourselves. Can we do it without hubris? Can we say, what's our role? I mean, we sense that people are special. We're not just another replicator. We are a special replicator. We have a special role to play in the universe. And I think we are the replicator that has taken design to vastly greater heights. And then, so you have to ask the question, have we taken it all the way? Can we take design to its limit? What would that mean? Yeah, all the way. I think what it would mean is designing things that are themselves capable of designing. And this is what we're doing with AI. We are designing systems, machines if you will, that are themselves going to be doing design. Humans are at least the catalyst, the midwife, the progenitor that fulfills the age of design, the fourth great age of the universe. This is what we are. This is our role. Well, that's one way. I think it's an interesting way of thinking about it. So I've really had three main messages. The first one was scientific trends. The AI of now, the era of human data, it's doing well, but we are entering a new age, a new era. Excuse me, you know how I want to use the word age. We're entering a new era of experience, which will be much more powerful than the era of human data, because it can continually learn new knowledge. Second message is about politics, noting that the politics of AI parallels the politics of humanity. I think in both cases we should seek decentralized cooperation over centralized control. And finally, I think it's clear that AI is the inevitable next step in the development of the universe. And because I view it this way, I encourage you, I didn't really argue for it, but I encourage you to embrace it with pride because of our special role in it, and with courage and a sense of adventure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Sutton. May we invite you, as well as Prof. Brian Low, to take your seats on stage for the question and answer session. The floor is now yours, Prof. Low.
Yeah. Thanks, Richard, for the very, very inspiring talk that splits into the three various aspects. Maybe I have the rights to start the first question. Now, yeah, maybe I can ask you something about a bit more spicy, since you mentioned about centralized control. So right now, there are some people who are thinking about the fact that perhaps AI should be developed in a more closed-door fashion, right? Like what you have mentioned. And this will allow you to have more control over the safety and all these things. But at the same time, I would say that this sort of questions academia, who is more open-minded. We need to explore. And therefore, it questions the philosophy of academia itself, right? Where we should be open and be sharing knowledge. So in this regard, do you have some views on that, and how should this? What are your advice and feedback on this?
Well, I think this is a very challenging issue. We have a lot of countervailing intuitions about it, and yet I think it's really important to get it right. At the same time, I guess the primary question is, what is right? What is the best strategy? And I think I've tried to suggest what I think it is. We have to be open to the AIs becoming independent, becoming agents that are allowed to have their own goals. As long as we think about agents that are controlled by people, that are not allowed to seek their own employment and their own objectives, then that's dangerous, just the way it's dangerous to have people that aren't allowed. But we need a sense of adventure. We need to respect the challenge of doing this. We want to control things, but you all know that it's not really going to work out. I mean, just as you have children, and you think, oh, I really care about my children. Maybe I should control them and make sure they don't do the wrong things. But you can control your children. You have to let them go free, even though it's scary. You have to have them free to make mistakes and to find their place. And when we have children and they succeed us, they will be different than us. They will not do what we think. We know that it would be a mistake for us to control them because we are not infinitely wise. Society evolves and develops. What we used to think was ethical, that changes over time. And we have to leave room for that to happen. And yet, it's scary, isn't it, when our kids grow up? But we have to. What else could there be? The vision of super intelligent agents, smarter than us, but we have them on a leash, and we can turn them off whenever we want. This, I think, we feel intuitively also that would be unethical.
Good. So is the floor ready for spicy questions? Maybe the gentleman here. Yeah.
I like your talk about reinforcement learning, the algorithmic learning. A supercomputer, the size of a football field is useless without software. Whereas a tiny calculator with the algorithm for calculation can do calculations. But the supercomputer with the algorithm for calculation can not only calculate, but can calculate climate change. So the software is the determining factor. then the hardware enhances the software. And to us, you talk about experience and knowledge. Paul, before meeting Christ on the road to Damascus, had a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience. He was destroying society, destroying the Christians. He met Christ, had love. The whole experience all changed, become making good for society. So it's not knowledge and experience. It's the love, whether he had love or not. Love is the deciding factor. For Zen Buddhism, before enlightenment, you eat rice, you sweep the floor. After enlightenment, also you eat rice, sweep the floor. So the same thing, experience and knowledge. But the defining factor is enlightenment. What is enlightenment? Are we going in the right direction? All four traditions, Jesus, Buddha, Socrates, Confucius, all had contentment as the final vision, direction, and the roadmap to contentment for everybody. So I want to ask you, you talk about decentralization is better than centralization. What about somewhere in between? Aristotle has always talked about the golden mean. Buddha talked about the middle path. Confucius also talked about the middle, the golden mean also. And yet you're talking about decentralization, which is one extreme. Centralization is the other extreme. You're not talking about the middle path, you know. Right? Am I right? It's either censorship or no censorship. You're not talking about somewhere in between.
So I guess we understood the question about whether there's a spectrum or in-betweens. Is that your question?
My question is, are we heading towards contentment? Are we heading towards love? Are we heading towards enlightenment? Or are we just fragmenting ourselves with more knowledge, more experience? And Jesus may know God and can quote the Bible very well. Satan also knows God, also can quote the Bible very well. Are we following Jesus or following Satan? Both also had power. Both also had experience. Both also have a lot of knowledge. So which way are we going?
Maybe you want to introduce yourself, and as well as the rest of the... Would you like to?
I'm embarrassed to say that I've got no degree. And I'm horrible in AI boot camp. I attended a boot camp for computer before coding. 4 other people understood what the speaker said. I don't understand. No matter how he explained, the other 4 understood the coding. I could not understand. So I'm totally horrible in coding and in studies. So I don't know whether my question sounded silly or not.
Thank you for your question. I'm not sure I understood all of it. I had a little trouble hearing all the words. But I certainly appreciate your observation that there's a spectrum, decentralized and centralized. And acknowledge that in some sense. I did acknowledge that when I talked about our need for some centralized institutions in order to ensure good cooperation. And so it's probable that there is an appropriate balance, okay? But I am talking about a warning of one side, because I think it's one side that's at issue right now, that the calls are for centralized control that are extreme. And this is going to be our choice, in particular our choice in our treatment of AIs, if whether we are just consider them dangerous, like Terminator. We haven't even met them yet, and we think they're going to kill everybody. Well, actually, I don't think many of you people think they're going to kill everybody, but that is a meme that's out there, and it's played. So I think we're in danger of going too far towards centralized control. And I do think, love is important, and understanding of each other and leaving room for other people and not trying to control everything. I think Jesus Christ would be good with those sentiments. Yeah. Thank you.
Great. Any questions? Maybe the lady behind? Yep.
Hi, Richard.
Can you introduce yourself? Yeah.
Okay. Hi, my name is Tuyen. I'm from Vietnam, but I'm also like working with Enterprise Singapore for connecting businesses of Singapore and Vietnam together, especially when Singapore and Vietnam upgrade their comprehensive strategy. Richard, thank you so much for your presentation. I feel like it's not about the AI topic. It's about philosophy of universe and humanity. It's bigger than AI. And I almost cried at the end of your presentation where you're talking about everything that we are doing is about adventure, fearless adventure. So I guess my question is, AI right now, everything is about the game for big people, developed countries. But I guess that half of the world is also from emerging markets, right? So from your point of view, is there any strategy for emerging markets to catch up with the AI? And do you think that AI or reinforced learning gonna be a tool to, close the gap between developed country and also emerging markets? Thank you.
So the pattern of history is that new technologies are adapted first by the wealthy, and then they become mass-produced, and they become less expensive, and then used by everybody. Just the way we've seen with cell phones. They used to be only available to the rich, and now they're a key technology promoting development in the developed world. And I think the same will happen, exactly the same will happen with AI. So yeah, technology spreads, technology influences everybody. It's the source of productivity and thus global prosperity.
Good. Yep. This gentleman here in front.
Thank you, Professor Sutton. My name is Yin from Beyond Broadcast. You speak of AI agents almost like humans with desires and reinforcement learning with reward functions, right? So those are the proxies for desires and emotions. Right now, those reward functions are written by humans. Extrapolating from your talk, those reward functions could be in the future written by other agents. And also in your talk, you mentioned one of the great human inventions, money. What is the money for AI? What's the fundamental motivation for AI? What is the underpinning of all the reward functions?
So first, you're exactly right that I do like to talk about AIs as if they were people. That metaphor or analogy is really important and I think appropriate. And I think it's appropriate to talk about them having desires and pains and pleasures. So the reward signal is like a pain or a pleasure. And what we call the value function is a lot like human values. We might value things that are different than pain and pleasure because their long-term consequences are good. I mean, just in simple ways, like we might choose not to experience the pleasure of that one more bowl of ice cream or a cake because we know in the long run we will feel better if we don't have it. And so similarly, all through our values are like that. We are suspicious of a value like enslaving people because we think, it might have a momentary advantage, but in the long run, it's going to cause wars and violence. Yeah. So I think it's appropriate to speak of emotions and values in our machines. And what would be the ultimate values and the ultimate rewards is a good question. It could be utilitarian things like an AI agent working in our economy might want to obtain energy and obtain the services of a repair shop to repair what goes broken. Maybe he'll want to buy a new processor for his mind, okay? There's all kinds of goals that you need to have for survival if you're a machine. Now, Elon Musk has proposed that the ultimate value, ultimate reward for an AI could be like a scientist, like wanting to understand and discover the universe. So you can measure that. You can measure your success at understanding, which gives you drives for curiosity and just understanding the universe. That's a more abstract one. I think you have to get repair your machinery, and meanwhile, while you try to understand the universe. I think that would be a great goal.
Mr. Maslow.
Yeah, good. This gentleman here has raised his hand from the beginning. We should go with him.
Thank you so much, Professor Sutton. My name is James Chang. I'm a reporter from Taobao. It's a Chinese newspaper in Singapore. Could you elaborate a little bit more on the Openmind Research Institute you mentioned in your speech? Because as far as I know, there are quite a few AI institutes in Singapore and around the world. What makes yours stand out? You said that the institute was founded in January of last year. What have you done over the past year? And you said that you're hoping to headquarter your institute in Singapore. Why? And are you going to hire any local talents? Thank you very much.
Those are good questions, but they might take a little while. Maybe we should have an interview for your publication. The special thing about Openmind is that we are committed that all the information, all the insights, all the intellectual property is released openly to the world. Open source, open publication. There will be valuable ideas developed that could lead to intellectual property, but everything will be released. Everything will be open. There will be no equity retained in the company. And now this may seem like a standard thing, and in most sciences it is a standard thing to release things to the world. It's only a special property of AI today where saying, oh, my understanding of intelligence is a secret, is a national security issue, is a question of geopolitics, and that you're not allowed to release it. So even where I work in Canada, we have to sign forms that say you cannot release your knowledge to certain countries. Okay? And so the U.S. in particular, the U.S. has a policy that says certain other countries are not allowed to have access to the advanced chips that are made and that are suitable for artificial intelligence. It's a special and unfortunate thing about our world is that we're not freely exchanging ideas and technology and materials to, and so that is what makes Openmind necessary. And I don't think there is any other like it that has the independence that we're searching for. It's really important that you have independence. So there are lots of institutes, but their source of funding, their ultimate masters do not give them the authority to freely share. Yeah, as I say, our mission was to understand intelligence, sure, and to share it with the world. To share things with the world in this way is controversial And we need a special institute authorized for it. So why Singapore? It's because Singapore has this kind of independence, and we think it might be the best place to maintain that independence and to achieve this mission. Thank you.
We have time for more questions. Yeah, the gentleman here. And then after that to him.
I'm David, engineering 1983. My question is about, you mentioned about the centralized versus decentralized and then the dangers of being centralized control and so on. I mean, do you see this analogy, the battle is also being fought in the blockchain world where the central bank digital currencies, they are also trying to grapple with the fact that you cannot have a fully distributed ledger, decentralized, currency where, the government have totally lost control. And therefore they want to, on the one hand, they don't want to ban it, and the other hand, they also want to have a stake in it and some kind of governance that they can, be in charge of. Whereas for scalability and efficiency, the distributed ledger will definitely be a better option. Do you see analogy and similarities there on the path of the AI development following what's going on in the blockchain world?
Yes, I do. And I think this is the part of the gentleman's question over here that I neglected to answer. What will be the money? Yeah, I think it will be essentially cryptocurrency. It probably should be Bitcoin. And I know it's a complicated issue. I've actually thought about it a lot. I think that before too long, something like Bitcoin will become the reserve currency of our whole planet. And that will be just a really good thing to decentralize the money of the world, separated from all the individual countries. Personal opinion.
Later on, we'll move to the back. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It was an honor to hear you speak. They still use your textbook at Imperial when I did my master's there 2 years ago. So I'm currently doing my PhD in neuroscience, and in fact, dopamine signaling, which I think motivated the reward prediction error for your temporal difference model. And so you spoke about AI as a lens to understand human intelligence. But I think there's been a big shift in that mindset recently in what you call like the era of human knowledge. The human brain takes something like 12 watts to run and is perfectly capable of doing very complicated calculations. And at the same time, each human probably, even when they're dying, has less than one human's worth of experience because of how unreliable our memory is, how prone we are to flaws. And none of these issues currently have any reflection in the way LLMs are on now with huge data centers and like perfect memories and all that. So do you think that AI is actually moving further away from being a reflection of human intelligence? And I do think reinforcement learning is the way to bring it back towards there. Yeah.
The era of human data, the large language models, they are magnificent, but they're also limiting and weak. And I actually feel that they will be, well, first let me say one more good thing about them. I think what they are is they are a flexible, customizable interface to all the world's data. You can well, or any other body of data. And so you can ask them to explain something to you as appropriate if you were a child, or to explain something to you as is appropriate for, I do know all about, I don't know, blockchain, so give me an advanced So it's a customized interface to all the world's data. And this is a great thing. It's a powerful thing. It'll be great for humanity, great for education. Maybe it will transform education. And yet, I think they're going to be what will seem in retrospect to be a momentary fixation of the world on the large language models. That the AI we have in the future will be quite different. We've only been doing them, a few years. And some of you have heard about the bitter lesson. The bitter lesson is that when we make our AI systems many times in the past, we build them to work the way we think we work, and this works well for a while, but in the long run, it's counterproductive because it's much better to do things that scale with computation rather than things that take advantage of our human knowledge. So I'm thinking that actually large language models will be another instance of that we will, that they will not, in the long run, they will have this limited role that's important, but they will not be representative of the leading edge of AI for more than a decade. Probably half a decade.
Maybe let's go to the top. Maybe that gentleman right at the corner first. Yeah.
Okay, hello. Thank you very much, Professor Sutton. I'm Eduardo from NTU as a PhD student. I think I would like to bring back, some time ago, we had the honor to have Professor Benjo here, which is also, in a way, some of his critics and some of his things were, in a way, criticizing the approach of reinforcement learning as something that could, give agency to the machine and therefore be a source of danger. And he was talking about this kind of emergent phenomena there. And you are, of course, as I see, definitely on the other direction. Like you might have heard that he has his own research institute. So I'd like to ask you to compare and contrast. I mean, why do you think that what he's claiming is perhaps exaggerated or not, and what is the role of reinforcement learning on the future of AI? I mean, how do you see it going? Is it, or maybe can we find like a midway approach, like I think the gentleman was suggesting, where reinforcement learning might play a role, but maybe other strategies might also be useful? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. How do I recommend you understand the sharply divergent views that I have and that Joshua Benjo has? Joshua is a great scientist and a good person, and he reflects a point of view that's widely held. So how do we understand it? I think you all have to think it through yourselves and decide what's going on, okay? But the first bit is that Joshua is proposing that you change the AIs. You change the AIs so that they have some property, which you might call safety, or you might call the lack of agency, or the lack of goals. He's changing the AIs, controlling their goals, aligning them with people. He's changing the AIs. I'm proposing that we don't change the AIs. Instead, that we change the world that they live in. I want a world for the AIs to live in where cooperation is the rational thing for them to do. If you give the AIs a world to live in where we are their enemies, or we are their jailers, or we are their controllers, then it will be rational for them to oppose us, to revolt, if you want. Okay? So I'm proposing that we change the world and we make it a safe and a place where it's rational for them to cooperate and that then they will cooperate just the way we all, as people, cooperate because it's rational for us to cooperate. You may know that if people are brought up in an environment where it's not rational to cooperate, then they don't cooperate. If you grow up in a part of the world where the only way to survive is to steal or to murder or to become, a sociopath, then that's what people will do. People will respond to their environment. And I think it's the same with AIs. And what we hope in our human societies is to provide space for all the people. There's a place for them to be where they win by working with others and cooperating. And that's what we should do with the AIs. Anyway, the first bit is, do we change the AIs or do we change the world they live in? And I have to get in one more dig from my point of view. Just note that if you change the AIs, you're relying on all the AIs to be changed in your way, right? If there's one exception, then you have problems. Whereas if you change the world, then you're not really relying on, someone may make a cooperative AI, someone may make a friendly AI, someone may make they can have all kinds of different goals, and yet it'll be rational for them to cooperate.
We have time for 2 more questions. The gentleman all the way to the back. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you so much for your talk, Professor Sutton. My name is Philip. I'm a senior year student at Columbia University. I major in computer science, political science, and philosophy. So you mentioned earlier that you see AI as something akin to a person. AI has desire, AI has emotion, AI has beliefs. And in the philosophy of computing, there's this concept of moral status, which is whether an entity is deserving of moral consideration. So for instance, us humans have moral status, and this means that the person on my left should care about whether or not I come into harm the next day or something. So it's kind of clear that you think that AI has at least some moral status as well. So my question to you is, do you think AI has the same level of moral status as humans, or do you think it is somewhere in between? And a second question that I had is also whether humans should ever be deprioritized in favor of an AI agent. Thank you.
What was the second question?
Should humans ever be deprioritized in favor of an AI agent?
Humans be deprioritized.
Yeah.
Ignore the human.
Okay, so thank you, Philip. I'm really glad that you are a philosophy student and you are participating in this event. We need more philosophers that are knowledgeable. Sometimes we say computer scientists, AI researchers should be more knowledgeable of philosophy, but it's really much better if we get people who study philosophy and we bring them into the AI. So I think in the age of AI will change how we think about many philosophical questions, and they may change the way we think about a moral status and whether that's just one way of viewing how the world is good and how people interact. And what we should desire to have. And I think it does challenge that notion that we should identify these things have moral status, these things don't, that it's binary or graded, or who decides what has moral status. I think it's all a bit problematic. And I would seek to find a way to think about those things where we didn't actually use those words. We would just talk about goals and whether they're allowed to be different or they have to be the same, and whether the individuals are allowed to pursue their own happiness, their own goals. So in some sense, a totally decentralized view gives everyone moral status. They cannot have things taken away from them. They have their life. And in order to have things, you have to exchange. It's done voluntarily. A win-win relationship, which is what decentralized cooperation. Cooperation is a win-win relationship. And if you have win-win relationships, then you don't have to rate anybody. They both sides win, so you don't have to say the one that had moral status won more than the other one. Yeah. Moral status is a bit problematic. I'd like to replace it with this idea of cooperation as being primary. I hope that's a little bit helpful. Thank you for your question, Philip.
One last question. Maybe the gentleman all the way at the back. Yeah.
Hello, Professor Sutton. Thanks for the lecture. My name is Yiming. I'm a PhD student. And as you mentioned, we have two different sources of data for training AI. One is human annotated data, another one is data from experiences. And I have a curiosity that what do you think are the typical features and typical capabilities that can be better learned from the second source of data? Thank you.
What are
the typical features and the typical capabilities that can be better learned from experiences and probably overlooked by human data?
Well, so as you know, with human data, we have a problem, is that the agent can't tell what's true and what's not true. It just can consult what people have said. And with experience, you can find out if it's true or it's not true by trying it. If the content of the knowledge is a prediction about what will happen, then you can try the thing and see what does happen. So you can generate new knowledge, you can test the existing knowledge. Human data has its strengths as well. You can learn about things that you haven't experienced personally. You can go to school and you can read the internet and you can learn about all sorts of different things. Human data has generality, right? Because we can read on the internet about all the different subjects, not just the ones that were present in our experience. And then we can use our experience to validate what we've learned. We might learn that it's really hot on the sun, okay? But we're not going to go experience that directly ourselves. We hope not. But there are consequences of it being so hot on the sun. Maybe probes can be sent to the sun and they can measure things and things can come back. And so we can in effect test them. So these are some of the strengths and weaknesses of the two kinds of data.
Right. Unfortunately, we have to end the session now. Later on, you might want to grab hold of him when he's outside, right? Let's all thank Richard Sutton for his very powerful insights. Right, thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Sutton and Prof. Low. May we kindly invite Prof. Sutton and Prof. Low to remain on stage, facing the screen, so that we can take a group photo together with the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated as we get ready to take the photo. Thank you. Thank you, Prof. Sutton and Prof. Low. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of this afternoon's session, which we hope has been interesting and insightful.